Okay. Well, welcome to the second episode of Pathway to Progress. I'm Mukunda Madhava. Thank you. I don't know if anybody tried to join yesterday or not. I had a few technical difficulties. The whole streaming thing is kind of new to me, so I thought I had it live, but I only had it live through my streaming software and not the actual YouTube. So I think today it's going to be better. It actually was nice because I ended up being able to get the overlay and everything, so I feel like it's a little bit better. And then because we're going to be doing the Bhagavad Gita a little bit today, we'll be doing a little bit of the introduction, and then just kind of telling you a little bit about, just what it is and everything like that for anybody that's unfamiliar with it. And then overall, the whole purpose of my channel and just what I want to share with everybody is, like I said, I don't really feel like I have anything to teach at all, but this book, the Bhagavad Gita, and this philosophy in general, the Gaudiya Vaishnav, but the Vedas and ISKCON, like Hare Krishnas, it's changed my life. And for me, I feel like that if it's helped me, I'm sure there's some people out there that it could also help. I went through quite a bit of it yesterday. I have a very, very background. I'm all over the place, with my upbringing and everything. And I feel like in a lot of ways, I've covered the full gambit of what your life can be and experience. What I found personally is just, there's a lot of practical life wisdom in the Bhagavad Gita that can really be applied. And so, I don't know if anybody, how familiar people are with the Bhagavad Gita in general. I'd heard of it before I got introduced to it. But I didn't really know a ton about it. And so, there's a lot of versions of it. When I first got into the Bhagavad Gita, one of the things I wanted a copy for myself, and I just went out and got a copy, and it was a good book. The one thing I love really much, very much about it, me coming from Roman Catholic background, one of the things that I struggled with when I was kind of at a moment of crisis with my faith was just, when you go into the research of it, how many different interpretations and translations have been made. And the original language, some say it was, ancient Greek, very old Greek. Some say it was Hebrew. Some say it was even older, like Aramaic. But regardless, it's obviously gone through multiple translations from language to language. And anyone who's familiar with that sort of thing, that a lot of things can get changed in translation. And, even culturally, some of the words that we use may not necessarily be the best ones to describe them. And so with the Bhagavad Gita and just the Vedas in general, like the Srimad Bhagavatam and any of these really, really big, massive books, one of the things I fell in love with personally, and this is the same with the Buddhist scripture. So I'm not saying it's only particular to the Vedas, the Vedic literature. But it's wonderful when you can get something in its original form. And, seeing all the Vedas in Sanskrit, of course, it's going to have to be translated to English, but you can look at the root word. So you can see what the initial intention of the author was, what they wanted it to say. And then you can kind of, of course, we use our teachers, like even our main teacher, Srila Prabhupada, he doesn't just go, it's not just his word. One of the things that we really promote in our philosophy is the idea of, it's called disciplic succession. So basically, our teacher, he just repeats what his teacher said, and his teacher, he repeats what his teacher says. And it's just this line of unbroken interpretation of what these meanings are. And what's really wonderful, again, and why we use this particular book that Srila Prabhupada, he came up with the idea to name it As It Is. And like I said, I'd had different versions of the Bhagavad Gita in the past, and there, you have their interpretation. So a lot of interpretations of it is that Arjuna's having a conversation almost with his self, with his own soul. or that this is a conversation between the soul and the body, or the soul and the eternal soul, and all these different interpretations of what it is, the ego and then the non-ego. There's all these different interpretations, and for us, instead of us trying to make sense of it and all this stuff, there's so much in the world that we try to understand, even how these computers work and everything else. Like, I'm sure we have a small idea of it, but in actuality, there's likely very few of us that understand how it all works. And it's very, very arrogant of us to think that we know how the universe works. The things that we believe nowadays in terms of quantum physics and astrophysics, everything else, how the universe works and operates, the laws of nature, it's very, very different from what it was a few hundred years ago, and so on and so on. But every single one of those moments, each generation of people and their knowledge, we thought we were perfect and we knew it all. For us, something like I said, because it's been on broken line for so many years, we believe that the Bhagavad Gita was written 5,000 years ago. And so instead of trying to interpret the words and take different words and figure out what they meant by this and what did the author really mean, try to read between the lines, we just literally take it as concrete facts as it is, right? And I believe, as an entrepreneur, even just doing this, like, I had the inspiration to start doing videos, and I had the inspiration now to start doing these live streams. And why do I think, what proof do I have that any of it's worthwhile, or that there's any point, or that I'm helping anybody? The viewers, obviously, I have the viewer count that I could look at, and I get the odd comments and things like this. And I please tell you now, please comment, please talk to me during if any of you are here live, and even who is watching a recording, leave comments, and I'd love to start a discussion about this. My goal isn't just to preach to you, it's to have a community drawn, and I want to be enlightened by you as well. Like, one of my things on my journey and why I've gotten here is because I keep an open mind about things. Just because I have a certain idea of what the way things are, I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't have an open mind. And I ask that all of you also kind of keep an open mind and an open heart with all this. So any of you who are doubting, for me, I'm not trying to change anybody, anything else. Before, when I first got my hands on the Bhagavad Gita, I don't know if necessarily I believed in everything. One of the things that I really helped with is the idea that Krishna, it's like, oh, here comes another god. My original name is Michael, and I think in the West, we don't often really think about the meanings of our names, but all names are a meaning, and they mean something. They're not necessarily a word unto itself that's us. It's a description of who we are, and that's no different than Krishna. So the Krishna in the Sanskrit, there's a few different meanings for it. One of them is black, which is, first of all, a little bit of a confusion because you always see him as this bright blue. But in scriptures, Krishna is actually described as dark blue, like the storm clouds. So, when you see the thunder clouds on the horizon and the storm clouds off in the distance, that almost like bluish black, right, is actually how he's described. And so Krishna means black. And then the most literal translation of the name Krishna is the most attractive, the all attractive. Okay, so you can use God, you can use whatever you want, but it's just a description of one of his qualities. So Krishna is just a description, which is why we have so many different names for Krishna. It's Govinda and Gopal and Narayan, and Vishnu is another name. All these names, Madhusudana, all these names are all names of Krishna, but they're all descriptions of different activities or different things that he's done or different qualities about him. It's not like any of those things are a different person or anything like that. It's all the same. Okay. So anyway, as I was saying, we call it as it is because that's what we believe is that it is as it is. And like I was saying, for me as an entrepreneur, part of the test that the universe gives us for anything really is to believe in it first. Before we manifest anything, before even our children, before they're here in front of us, they're just a spark in our eye. It's just the love between a man and his wife. And so first, before we even see anything manifest or we can believe anything, we just have to have faith. And so I'm going to try something today. Let's see. We're gonna move this guy. Look at that. Okay, so let's do this first. So I just want to read something from, this is from the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. The Prabhupada, he talks about here about what I'm speaking about. So what he says, let me just move my ugly face. Oops. Unless one reads the Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it is very difficult to understand the Bhagavad Gita because it is a great mystery. You know, we're dealing with massive mysteries about the universe and the way things are. So, I mean, I don't know what we can't go into this assuming that we know everything, and we can't go into this assuming that we have the answers, or, you know, I don't know how am I supposed to believe this, or, you know, all these different things. I think it's one of the big problems overall with, you know, our culture in general, of where we're at as a society right now, is just that idea of arrogance. You know, we're also arrogant that we think we know everything. And so if we can just go into this with an open mind and an open heart, I promise you the rest will be taken care of. Like, that's literally what happened to me. So we call this a spiritual science because we truly believe, and I can tell you from experience, that if you just apply these practices, right, and the things I'm going to go over today, it's just really simple 5 things. And this isn't even actually, I don't know if all of it is from the Bhagavad Gita. But if we can just start a simple routine of simple practices that can start to clear our mind, you know, and I'll go over some of the different verses, you know, that kind of talk about some of this. But like I said, if we could just start it a little bit with just an open mind, and then go from there. So, you know, the story in the Bhagavad Gita, it takes place in a war. Okay, so let's think about a battlefield where there's these 2 massive armies, you know. And what's really amazing actually is you can go today to Kurukshetra. And it's a historical place. Like, this isn't okay. So you can actually go right to where they fought this war and see the battlefield. So, you know, we have to remember that this was a time when India was a great empire. And you know, in the Vedas, it's described as a world covering, like a global superpower at the time. And so, you know, in this story, it's set in a battlefield, right? But there's a twist, right? Like, it's not just a war of swords and spears, but it's the way they frame this, it's actually a war within ourselves, you know? And it's the battlefield of emotions and choices and the dilemmas that Arjuna has to go with. And for me, like, there's so much of what he's going through, it just resonates so clearly with today's world. And again, that's where, for me, like, besides all the religious part of it, just as a book that can help us navigate the struggles of the world, you know, like I mentioned yesterday, I don't know how many people saw it. I'm trying not to watch any of that because I just don't want to get discouraged. Like, for me, this message is so valuable. I don't care about the feedback, or not necessarily. I'd love to hear feedback, but I don't care about the response in terms of how many viewers I get. You know, I had this thought about it the other day where it's like, if I have one person that is watching this and gets any kind of value out of it, that's all that matters, you know. And this book is such a valuable book to give us a tool that can help us really navigate the world. And so, you know, Arjuna, he's in this, you know, he is royalty, but as you read it, there's a lot of the things he's saying that you can just tell he's just like you and me, you know. And he's caught in this whole web of doubt. Like, on one side is his teachers and extended family, and then on the other side are his little brothers and grandfathers, and, you know, there's people on sides that are intimate acquaintances that there's no real positive outcome. There's no way that this seems like it could be a possible win for Arjuna out of this. And so, you know, the responsibility and everything, it's all on his shoulders in that moment. And like I said yesterday, I think we can all really be familiar with that, where we kind of get to a point where we just want to quit. right? And this is kind of where I wish we all had this, but in this story, the charioteer that's with Arjuna is Lord Krishna. So, it's a incarnation of God. And again, like I have to mention, I don't want to skirt around this. Like I know some people that, I know podcasts and things like this that do stuff that do with the Hare Krishna and with Krishna. I'm not going to skirt around this. I'm going to just be very clear right from the beginning. And like I said, please send me comments. Please send me feedback about this. I would love to talk about this, because as we go through this, we're going to be talking more and more about how this is. And hopefully you'll also kind of see it, right? But Krishna, when Krishna was here on this planet, similarly to how the sun is in the sky, but the sun rays are simultaneously all throughout the universe, okay? We believe that Krishna was a physical form, but not material, but he was spiritual, a spiritual energy that formed on this earth, and he had a personality, and he had 2 legs and 2 arms and everything just like us. But as he was physically here in the spiritual form on earth, he was simultaneously in Goloka Vrindavan. So in the highest planet in the spiritual world. So, we believe in a very complex astrological setup. And, it's a pretty amazing when you read the Srimad Bhagavatam and the way it breaks down the solar system. 5,000 years ago, this book describes our solar system to every single planetary body. Okay, but then it also talks about how there's other planets within our solar system that we can't necessarily see yet. Okay, and that haven't been discovered yet. But like I said, it talks about Earth and Mars and, Jupiter and everything. It even talks about Pluto. Okay, all these things are described in there. And just like how we now know that the Milky Way, like our galaxy, it's one of many, many galaxies in this universe. That is also described exactly in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And what it also describes is that above our universe, there's a separate spiritual universe, like a reflection of this one that's pure, and that this whole universe, as we know, the Big Bang, we all know this, this universe has gone through creation and destruction cycles. Okay, and in Vedic philosophy, we believe of this is called the yugas, the ages, right? And as there's 4 yugas, and as we cycle through them, the last age, the Iron Age, is Kali. And at the end of that, there's a dissolution of the universe, and then it all starts over again. But there's a separate spiritual world that never gets destroyed. And that's the place that we're all going to. We will hopefully, we all will go there eventually. It will be, for some of us, many lifetimes. So in this story, what's so wonderful is that Arjuna has Krishna, this eternal, all knowledgeable being, right with him. And like I said, I think we've all been through some pretty heavy stuff in our life. And one of the first verses that really hit me, Udared atmanatmanam natmanam avashadyet atmaya hatyat mano bandur atmaiva rupar atmanaha. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Tell me, who amongst us can't imagine that? We've all been there, right? Like, we have all been in this mode where our mind could either be our best friend or our worst enemy, and it's, I feel like that right there for me, there's a couple verses we're going to go over really quickly, right, as we do this. So this is one of them. 6.5 is one that when I read this, I was just like, this is it, right? Like, there's so much universal truth in this that when you read it, you can't help but just kind of get smoked with it, right? And so it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like there's all these universal truths and topics that get tackled, and it like booms, it hits you. Like, how could this be from 5,000 years ago? Like, this sounds like it's something from right now. Like, this sounds like it's cut right out of our veins of modern society. And it's all this purpose and duty and morality, and like, it's the eternal dance of life. Like, it doesn't matter what time. When you read these stories, like, one of the things I love is historical stories. And when you read these old stories, if you take out the context of the culture and some of the traditions and things like this, they're stories of just like you and me. They're no different than the things we go through. And so there's certain universal truths that we've all been through. And that's the key to this in the Bhagavad Gita. So, there's profound insights about human nature, self-discovery, ethics. And, again, this is the second verse that really hit me. The karmanya karmaya prasyet akami cha karmayaha sa buddhiman manusyeshu sa yukta krishna karma krit. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. Right? When I first read this hit me like a ton of bricks, right? So many of us, we want to change our lives. And sometimes, like for me, there was a stage in my life where I almost just didn't want to do anything because I didn't want to make any more mistakes. Little do we know that in that mode of us not doing anything, we're doing a lot. And likewise, so many of us waste the days away. For instance, there's a really common thing among entrepreneur circles of reading self-help books. What is a very dangerous mode is because you get a rush every time you finish one of these books. You get all motivated, you're full of discipline. Oh man, that's it. This is the one that's going to change me. And you feel accomplished because you read the book. What do you do next? Well, you read another book. Then you read another book. And next thing you know, months have passed and you haven't applied any of the things from the book. And similarly, like even with this, like I said, this is a spiritual science, but it's only in so much as if you actually participate in the things that it's describing. If you just read it and you intellectualize it and you just use your mind, you're going to be in trouble. If your mind gets in the way and you're just, oh, that sounds silly, I'm not going to do that. I was listening to I often listen to motivational speakers in the morning while I'm getting my day ready, like after I do my prayers and everything, and it helps me, right? Like it keeps me. Sometimes I don't feel like going to the gym, and so you put this on and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I gotta go. I remember my why, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I chasing after? What am I doing this for? And this motivational speaker, he said, the apple a day, what does an apple a day do? And everybody's laughing in the audience, right? And he keeps saying it until they actually say it. Keeps the doctor away. And he's like, and they all laugh, right? Because we've all heard this. But what if you actually did have an apple every single day? What if you did that? Instead of what we normally do, right? Consume cell phone and social media, consume junk food, consume things that we know aren't good for us, do actions that we know aren't good for us. Just like when we sit on the couch, doing nothing is actually doing a lot. And similarly, when we do things that we know aren't good for us over and over and over again, that is also inaction in action. You're doing something, but you're actually either standing still or sometimes even worse, falling backwards, right? So these are these universal truths that really highlight for me why the Bhagavad Gita can be a really practical book and also very important in terms of what is the philosophy that you run your life by. So many of us, I think, don't even realize what it is that's running our system. Every single one of us has a story that we tell ourselves subconsciously that motivates what we do, why we do it, how we do things. And, I like to call this as our personal philosophy, right? And the thing about it is if you don't set your philosophy intentional, it's going to be set for you unintentionally, and it's going to be running you without you even knowing it. And next thing you know, you could be 5 to 10 years down the road, not even know how you got there. And it's all because you've been running by a philosophy that you didn't intentionally set. So again, it goes to this action in action in inaction, and inaction in action, right? One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. You know, again, this is the key to, I think, my whole purpose of all this, and you know, why I call it the pathway to progress, right? Because for me, obviously, the book is important, and having the Bhagavad Gita is massive. But at the same time, you know, it's this pathway. You know, one of the very first quotes that I ever heard that really this stuck with me is this quote by Rumi that says, "As we begin to walk on the pathway appears." So many of us are walking on a path or looking for a path, and we don't even realize we're already on it. And we're walking in the wrong direction. The whole time we're searching, it's right under our feet. And you end up kind of going by the wayside, right? And that's why, for me, there's 5 practices that I started to introduce into my life that really changed everything for me. And it really helped me see the positivity in my life. It helped me to understand that I needed my own personal philosophy, and it started to help me figure out who I was, where I was going, and what I wanted from my life. You know, I think we all need to wake up every morning, and first of all, we really need to be grateful. And so that's the first real big step, right? Is let's make sure that we're feeling grateful, right? Are we grateful for what? The little things in life. Are we grateful for them? So let's, I wasn't planning on doing this. I should have been more prepared. I promise, as you know, as we do this, that's part of all this, right? Is, like I said, I don't feel like I'm anything special or that I really have much to teach, but I want to help every single person that watches this or comes into contact with this get brave. And one of the things we all need to do is do things that are out of our comfort zone. So we're just going to do it this way. So hopefully, gratitude. Let's see if I can. Why isn't it showing? What have we done? There we go. So the first, let's see, let's change this here. So 5 practices for spiritual growth. So for me, the biggest one that changed my life is gratitude. Now, we hear this so much, right? I'm sure everybody's heard this about, let's start our day with gratitude. You know, if we can just start to begin to shift our perspective from one of need and want and what we don't have, instead of seeing things that we don't have, we can begin to appreciate the little things that we do have. You know, one of the biggest practices that I try to teach our kids is, you know, I was a chef for a long time, and we would go downtown in Christmas time and take food, make some sandwiches to the people down there, because there's so many of us that just I didn't even realize. See, this is what I mean. I hope the music wasn't too loud the whole time. I only meant to have that on in the beginning, but so many of us, you know, we forget how lucky we are to have even just a meal or a roof over our head, or all these different things that we take for granted. And so if you just start your day with a little bit of gratitude, that's a massive one, right? And so the next one for me is meditation. And I talked a little bit about it yesterday. But even just 5 to 10 minutes a day is seriously all you need to just start getting yourself change a little bit and out of that cycle of the negative self-talk. You start to realize that your mind is separate, you know, that from your soul. And like all things, it's a tool. You know, the mind is a muscle and it needs to be worked out and it needs to be fed correctly. And that means we have to pay attention to what kind of music are we listening to? What kind of media are we looking at? Are we looking at things that help us get into a proper mindset? And for me, I don't know, likely a few people that watch this that might be around my age, but you used to have to defragment hard drives. And when you ran the defragment program, you'd have this like visualization of these blocks, and it would be like moving the blocks around, like as if it was like organizing them on a wall. And for me, that's how I feel meditation is, right? A knife, for instance, it can be used to heal in the hands of a surgeon, or it can be used to kill in the hands of a murderer. Our mind is the same thing. Again, we'll go to this verse, right? One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. If we're not careful, the mind will take over. And like I said, that's the philosophy that will run. One of the things we have to remember, right, is that although it's the modern world, in terms of evolution and the species, we're not that old. And our brain was originally developed to keep us out of danger. And although there's no saber-toothed tigers or anything anymore, our mind is still trying to protect us all the time. And the fear that we have, the uncomfortable feelings that we have that are necessary for us to grow. It's not comfortable to go to the gym. I don't like going to the gym. I hate it. But I want to be able to grow up and or watch my kids grow up and be able to be active with them, And so only through the uncomfortableness of going to the gym do I get that positive return. And it's the exact same thing with everything in our life. And so it's only through meditation that we could start to use and massage the tool of our mind and use it for us, right? You have to make these little deals with your mind, okay? And that's how the only way you can even figure it out and figure out what are the terms that your mind wants to work with. What does my mind need, right? The only way you can do any of this is through meditation, is through spending time with your mind, not trying to avoid it. You have to get into it. Okay, so now let's go to the third one. So the third one is to get your body moving. Now, I would recommend going to the gym, but you don't need to go to the gym. During COVID, all the gyms closed, and I think I likely got in the best shape I've ever been in my life, simply because I wasn't putting any muscle on. It was all just, riding my bike and going and playing basketball as much as possible. And, a big thing is just get the body moving, right? This whole concept of our mind being separate, it's so important for both our physical health and mental clarity in actuality to get the body moving, because we really need to clearly establish the separation between the mind and body. Like if you do a proper meditation technique and you get taught properly, one of the first things you're supposed to do when you're doing it is ground yourself. And, you take these big, deep breaths. And you imagine your body being an empty vessel, and that air when you're breathing in goes all the way to your toes. Okay. And as you do that a few times, you really get the feeling of your body. Feel your lungs filling up, feel your lungs depressing, up and down, up and down. You feel your fingers, you feel your butt on the chair or on the cushion. These are all things you really have to really clearly differentiate the difference between our body and our mind. The first step in this whole realization of self, okay? And realizing that we're a spirit soul, realizing that we're a soul. The first step in this is you first have to realize that your mind and body are separate, right? So much of the time it's like, oh, my finger hurts. Oh, my head hurts. But, if you cut that same finger off, like this kind of gets gross, right? But say your finger or your hand that, oh my gosh, if you cut it off and it was lying on the table, what would you call it? My hand, right? It would just be a hand. Our bodies aren't part of us. They're just the vehicle that contains us. Okay. So similarly to how you have to make sure that you take care of your car, you know, you could either use the car too much and you never get any repairs done on it and maintenance done on it. You don't feed it the right oils or liquids, and, you know, water, antifreeze, all these things. You don't put the right things in it. You use the wrong gas. You use diesel instead of gas. The car's going to run like crap. And it's the exact same thing with our body. If you sit that car in the garage and it's a collector car and you never want it to get hurt or dented or put any miles on it, but you don't actually turn it on and you don't run it once in a while, what's going to happen? It's not going to start. It's going to be a piece of junk, right? And it's very the same with us. Every single day we need to get our body moving. If you don't, it's that old cliche, right? Use it or lose it. And if you're not growing and if you're not trying to move, you know, there's only two ways in this life, and it's according to physics, right? Everything in this world is either growing or dying. There's no in between. So you have to ask yourself every single day, am I growing or am I dying? Right? And that's when we come to the fourth one. So the fourth one now, one of the neat things with this one is they don't have to be long. They can be whatever length you want. So for me, I started with just promising myself that I would write 2 lines a day, and you'd be amazed how many mornings or afternoons or evenings, it doesn't matter when you do this. But it'd be amazing for you how many times you say, I'm only going to write 2 lines. And next thing you know, you've written 2 pages, right? And for me, journaling, the big thing with it is, you know, obviously you need to set goals, right? If you have a map and on the map, you say, I don't know, I want to go here, right? Wherever, I don't know. You want to go to Ottawa, okay? But on the map, you can't even clearly differentiate where you are. You don't even know you're in Vancouver, right? How would you ever get to Ottawa if you don't even know where you started? And similarly, if you were in Vancouver and you wanted to go somewhere, but you don't know where, and you couldn't pick a destination, how would you ever get there? And so there's the 2 things with journaling that's really, really important is we need to clearly establish where we currently are, what we lack, where we want to go, what we need. Because one of the most important things in establishing a personal philosophy is that we need to really establish our why. Why do we do things? Why are we doing things? Are we doing it for ourselves? Which is fine, right? Which is fine. One of the biggest things we can do to help our family is to be selfish. If you're being selfish for the right reasons, right? You know, it's like Jordan Peterson talks about. It's like, how can you expect to help your family if your own self is messed up, right? There's this really famous story in Vedic philosophy. It might be even Buddhist philosophy. It's, you know, these are all exchangeable. It doesn't matter. Again, these are universal truths, right? But so the story goes that a mom, her son was having a really hard time with sweets, and her son wouldn't listen. I'm sure any of us who have kids, we all know how this goes. The son wouldn't listen to the mother, right? There was nothing she could do. He just wouldn't listen. And so I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you to the guru. I'm going to take you to the priest. And so she goes marching to the temple. And when she gets there, she explains the situation to the guru. Okay, you know, this is what's going on. I really need you to tell my son, like, these sweets are going to make him sick. Like, he can't do this anymore. It's bad for him. And so the guru says, well, I'll tell you what, come back in a month and I'll help you out. Okay. But you have to come back in a month. So the mom was kind of upset, obviously. And so, but she, you know, it's the guru. What can you do? It's the priest. What are you going to argue with a priest? And so the mom goes home and comes back a month later, and the guru helps, and the son got cured of his sweet addiction. And the mom said, you know, thank you, but like, why did I have to wait a month? And he said, you know, if I had a problem with sweets, I like them too much. And, you know, he was a big guy. And so how can I tell your son not to do something that I do? Right. And this is the same thing. How can we go around trying to tell our kids to eat right, to exercise, Make sure you study in school. Make sure you do better. Make sure you set your sights on higher goals. But then what are we doing? Right? What are we doing? You know, I listened to this guy the other day, and one of the things that's really happens a lot in our society is adults will make their kids sit down and listen to these gurus. And, you know, like he said, sure, it's nice that you make them sit down and listen to me, but like, what about you? Do you come and sit down when I'm not here? You know, if you can't even sit down and be calm and watch, listen to the teachings, how do you expect your kids to? You know, and so this is one of the things with journaling is that we really have to really be honest about where we're at and what we need to do to get to where we want to be. Okay. And so, yeah, so I mean, you see all these are very simple, right? Now, this last one, sunlight, how simple, right? But the sunlight in the morning. So first thing in the morning when you get up, this is the most important thing you can do, right? And I'm talking about for boosting your mood, for overall sleep, for energy, for just feeling rejuvenated every single day. The first thing you need to do is get sunlight in your eyes, okay? Because, you know, we're the only animals that exist because we are animals at the end of the day, right? We sleep, the animals sleep. We mate, the animals mate. We defend, the animals defend. We make houses, the animals make houses. Like, we do all the same things that animals do. We just on a higher level. That's it, right? But we're the only animals that exist that can change the sun, the light. You know, we can turn electricity on. I can change the lights in here. I can at nighttime, in the morning, you know, our babies, right? We have blackout curtains, so we can make it nighttime in the middle of the day, you know. And so because of that, our circadian rhythm, which is this natural thing within our autonomic system. So this is a system within ourselves, like our breathing and heartbeat and everything, that it runs on a secondary subconscious level, right? It's an automatic system that runs behind the scenes all the time. And our circadian rhythm, it's set to work with the sun. You know, it's the same reason why if you try to grow plants not in the natural, you can do it in non-natural light and you can shift it around, but like you can't have grow lights on and then sunlight, and you can't have it all around the place. Like they get really confused. Like when you do plants and you grow them inside, we grow seedlings in our garage before we move them to our garden. And if you move them and don't acclimate them to the actual sun, because it's the two different rhythms, they'll die. They get thrown right off. And it's very similar with us. We just don't die, but we get sick. You know, I had a motivational speaker, a mentor, some years ago, and he was talking about, you know, the term disease. And, you know, we all know this word, obviously, but the thing about that word is dis-ease. All these diseases, all these negative things that happen in our life, it's only most of the time because we're out of sync. You know, our body needs to be in a homeostasis. It needs to be in a balance. And when we're not in that balance, things get thrown off. And, you know, so we need to keep these natural rhythms of the body running properly. And so that's why the sunlight's really, really important. You know, and so these 5 practices, these are all things that can be really useful in just our modern world and the things that we go through. You know, our world now, the modern world, it's so fast paced, it's so quick, and it's hard not to want things all the time. You know, it's hard not to want the newest toys and everything else. So by practicing, having a gratitude practice, then all of a sudden it can slow us down a little bit. It releases some of the anxiety. It helps us release some stress because we're thankful for the things around us, and we can be thankful for even the little things. Like I often talk about, one of the wonderful things about our philosophy is that it's allowed me to simultaneously appreciate the really small things in life, but also have this grander perspective of the universe and everything. And so what's so wonderful about these practices, and like I said, with gratitude, is it can really make you appreciate the small things in life, which I think we all miss in the modern world. And, you know, likewise with meditation, it's the same thing. Because the world goes so fast all the time and our attention span is like this being taken in 1,000 different directions. By meditating, we could really isolate the thought patterns and we can start to catch them before we see ourselves go down these rabbit holes of negative self-talk or, I mean, you know, we hear about it all the time in the news about Instagram and social media and how it can really mess with our self-worth, and it makes a lot of women self-conscious and body conscious. By simply starting this meditation practice, you can start to see where these thought patterns, they're starting to kind of cause problems with us, right? So like I said, you know, meditation, we think about this practice in a lot of ways. You think about getting the body moving, the sunlight, everything like this. Well, the meditation, it's similar, but instead of for our mind, instead of for our body, it's for our mind. And it's the same thing, like I said, you know, so just getting that movement going, like, again, in the modern world, so many of us drive cars everywhere. We're taking the public transport all the time. I don't think we always have enough emphasis on just getting the body moving. Like, many of us that work in offices or sit in chairs all day, how much are you getting up and going, right? So, and again, it just helps us really differentiate that connection between the body and the mind. So all these are just practices to really help us gain a grounding and really start to understand why it is the things we do. You know, I really want the one takeaway from today's talk is a personal philosophy. The personal philosophy is something we all really need to work towards. Like I said, if we don't define the reason intentionally for what we're doing and why we're doing the things we do, our whole process of just working through life gets sabotaged. And we're kind of wandering aimlessly, not understanding why we do the things we do. You know, and again, now this leads right into journaling, right? So by clearly defining our why and really setting out the things that we want out of life, journaling can just really clarify these things, right? Like I said, you need to define the two things. You need to be really clear and honest with yourself about where you are. And then you also really need to define where you're going. And then this way, the universe will literally start to put things in front of you to allow these things to happen. But if you don't know, how can the universe give you things, right? So it's all about that. And then the other big thing about journaling for me, you know, is through the practice of meditation, we start to realize these cycles that our mind works in. And so when we're going through the problems, if we go through journaling and use it as a stream of consciousness that we can just blurt out on paper, we could start to see when these negative patterns are coming in. So just seeing it in black and white, sometimes it makes it so much easier for us to call ourselves out and kind of laugh at how we make bigger issues out of the problems, right? And you see how all these things, they kind of all work in together to make one stream of just self-help, right? Self-improvement. And so then the last one is getting the sunlight in the morning. So, I mean, sleep would also be a good one on here, but I think so we'll just add sleep. But I think sleep also, you know, it's hand in hand with the sunlight in the morning, because like I said, you know, by establishing the really, really good circadian rhythm in your body, you'll realize all of a sudden how much it was affecting your overall sleep, right? And, you know, you've seen the studies on blue light and everything like that. And, you know, all of our phones nowadays, they all have ways to block the blue light. And there's a reason why that is. So it's really something that I encourage you all, please don't take my word for it. These are all things that have helped me. And but I look into the circadian rhythm. So I'll write that on here as well. Circadian rhythm. Yeah. So yeah. So, you know, we got 10 minutes left. I'm going to try to keep this always to about an hour. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I even have anybody watching this live right now. I don't think so. But, like I said before, I hope that if any of you have any comments or questions or feedback, I'd really like some comments. I really am hoping to build a full conversation around this and a community around this. The idea, is that we can help each other. I don't sit here and pretend that I have all the answers. I don't sit here and say that I know what's what. For me, at the end of the day, it's a community that I have a goal for. And I really hope that as I pass along some of this knowledge, that you also pass some knowledge on to me. So I would really encourage this to be a two-way street. And so, once again, the main takeaways, we're going to go again tomorrow. So I'm going to be doing this every day for a month. I haven't decided yet if I'll be doing it on the weekends. But for sure, we're doing it again tomorrow, and we'll start with the first verse. I'm going to do it similar to Wisdom of the Sages, where we could just go many verses. We don't necessarily have to do one verse each time. So it'll be not that long. But the main takeaways from today, I'm going to try to really integrate the different practical tools from the Bhagavad Gita for personal growth and well-being. And I really want us to delve into some of the different methods and techniques that I've used that have helped me to develop this personal philosophy of myself. And, like I said, there's I heard a guys talk about this a while ago where, for a long time, I was trying to just figure it out for myself. And, he was saying you could likely learn basketball or martial arts by reading a book. But if you went and got a coach, it would be so much better, right? And I'm hoping that just by me kind of telling you the different things that I see in the Bhagavad Gita, it'll encourage you to also look for yourselves and then maybe inspire you to find your own path. After the Gita, I don't know what other book we're going to do next, but this is going to be a continued thing. I don't know. Maybe we won't even do a book. Maybe it'll develop into whatever. I'm really huge into believing that God has a plan for each and every single one of us. And if we can just quiet our mind enough and get the fear and uncomfortable feelings out of the way, we can listen and we can act to that. And by me doing that, it's led me here. And so I don't know where this will go exactly, but I can promise you that I'm going to continue to listen to my voice, and I hope my inner voice. And I hope that by me doing that, it'll maybe clear some of the distractions from your own, and that maybe you'll be able to hear it a little bit better as well. And so, I hope you can also see all the practical wisdom and how the Bhagavad Gita can really be applicable to our modern world and just the daily life. And so on that note, I hope you subscribe. I really am excited to share this journey with you guys. And I really, really hope that you guys get some benefit from it. And I would love to hear any wins you guys have. I'd love to hear anything like that. And if anybody out there is interested in receiving a Bhagavad Gita, especially if you live in British Columbia, send me a message or email me, mmdas haran, mmdas. Here, I'll put it on the screen here. You can email me, and I'll figure out a way to get you a Bhagavad Gita, a copy. I have a few of them, so that I can hand out. Yeah. So let's see here. Can you see it? Yeah, there you go. So Das Haran. So if anybody wants to get their hands on a Bhagavad Gita, just let me know. Yeah. So that's it. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow. All this week we'll be here at 4:00 for an hour. And tomorrow we'll start with chapter 2, or verse 2. And like I said, who knows how this will go. If anything that I see in the next day kind of really inspires me and I feel like it needs to share it with you guys, whether it be a music or
Who knows, maybe even games, right? Like I've gotten into some games lately, building computers lately. So this isn't going to just be strictly scripture all the time. These first few of them are just kind of more so to get you guys used to who I am and what I'm all about and why I picked the Bhagavad Gita. But don't, if the scripture itself turns you off, a lot of it's going to be just like this. It's going to be me talking. It's going to be me, what I see in it. One of the things that our teacher, Srila Prabhupada, he really encourages is, you know, I think we all know this now as well, is that one of the best ways to retain knowledge is to teach it and share it with people. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about is just, and, you know, also too, sometimes I make commitments to myself, but I don't always stay true to myself. And I thought that by me doing this and making a commitment to you guys, it would keep me accountable. And this way I could also read the Bhagavad Gita every day for the next month and see the difference in my life. And then I could share that with you guys as well. So thanks so much for any of you who joined live. I'm not really great at this yet. I'm learning as I go. So 30 episodes in by the end of this month, or end of the 30 days, I'm sure I'll be even better. By 100 episodes, I'll be even better. And any of you who joined from the beginning, I think it's going to be kind of cool that we've been on this from the beginning together. So please, like I said, join me tomorrow for the next live stream. And Hare Krishna. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And please, please, please remember, if I can do it, you can do it. And please find your why. Find your why, right? And make sure you sit down and you define your own personal philosophy. Because remember that if you don't intentionally make it, it's running you subconsciously and you don't even know it. So next thing you know, you're in a place that you don't even want to be. You're trying to go to Hawaii and you end up in the Yukon, right? You don't want that. Trust me, you don't want that. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful night and I will see you soon. Hare Krishna.